You know, there's a saying I've heard a lot over the last few years, and that's wrestling is for everyone. That means people should be able to participate in and enjoy professional wrestling of all kinds without fear of judgment or scrutiny or gatekeeping or abuse. And as much as I wish to believe we were accomplishing that, lately it feels we are failing on that mission statement. This year has already sucked for life in general, let alone wrestling, but on top of this pandemic, which is going to drastically change how we conduct business in the industry, now there's another reckoning on our hands. Because years after the Me Too movement began, now wrestling is having its own Me Too in the form of the hashtag SpeakingOut. Since this past weekend, we've all heard and seen and read dozens of claims of abuse, of coercion, gaslighting, harassment, and more in professional wrestling, whether it be promoters, bookers, trainers, esteemed veterans, or just guys and gals in the locker room. It's affected the smallest independent promotions and some of the stars in the biggest companies today. The number of accusers and the accused are both just too big to list here. Now, we've heard of allegations of abuse in the past, especially in the wake of the Me Too movement, but this feels different. It's so much larger in scale, and right now, people are tired of hiding. Let me just reiterate what I've been saying on social media, and that is my heart goes out to all the men and women in wrestling who've suffered abuse, whether it be recently or years or decades in the past. And whether you've been brave enough to share your stories publicly or you haven't been able to do it just yet, my heart goes out to you. You've been through so much. Wrestling is already a very physically and mentally demanding job, and for abuse to be piled on top of that, I can't begin to imagine the suffering you've been through. And no matter what anyone tells you, the abuse is never the victim's fault. Now, I have worked and I've collaborated with a few people on both sides of this issue, the accusers and the accused. And when it comes to the accused, I feel mad. I feel betrayed. I feel kind of heartbroken. My trust has been violated by a few people in this list, including one person in particular who I consider to be a friend and a colleague in the business, one who I defended time and time again, and now it feels all for nothing. I feel like I've been betrayed. I'm mad at that person, and I'm mad at the system that has allowed what he has done to perpetrate over the years, not just with him, but with scores of other people. It's easy for people to say, separate the art from the artist, but when it comes to this moment we're in right now in wrestling, I have a real hard time doing that. The names and the times and the places are all different, but there are a few things that a lot of these stories have in common. Many of them have been allegedly committed by people in a position of power. Grooming is often involved. There's usually pressure to keep quiet out of fear of retaliation or hurting your prospects in your wrestling career. And perhaps most disappointingly, some of these encounters seem to involve a lot of adults engaging with minors. Yeah. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that this is some brand new phenomenon in wrestling. Sexual harassment and assault have been around everywhere, in everything. It is deeply ingrained in our society, and wrestling's nothing new. Hell, part of Ric Flair's legend was how he would flash flight attendants mid-flight. Wrestling is built on a foundation of lies and exploitation. But does that part of our business really still have to be a thing? When's enough enough? How hard is it to not be a creep in wrestling, or in life for that matter? How hard is it to take no as an answer? Whatever happened to going on dates? Whatever happened to consent? What happened to not trying to sexually engage with children? In case you can't tell, I'm firmly on the side of believing victims until being proven otherwise. The way I see it is, I would much rather defend somebody who accuses somebody else of rape and then it turns out the accuser was lying about it, than defend somebody who's accused of rape and then it turns out they actually raped someone. And I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comment section and on social media who will say, oh, the accusers, they're just doing it for the attention. They're trying to get booked and get their name out there. You know, why didn't they report it right away? Or why didn't they call the cops? And of course, there's no way that all these claims can be real. Well, first of all, for all the unmitigated shit that abuse victims get just for being brave enough to speak out against their abuser, why would any of them go through all that misery over a lie? There are lots of other better ways to get attention and bookings than by crying rape. Additionally, nobody's getting booked right now unless you're signed to one of maybe 4 companies in this country, and like I mentioned earlier, it is a fact that abuse victims often don't report out of fear of retaliation. Why don't victims report right away? Well, there is that aforementioned fear, and also because victims don't always recognize abuse as abuse until much later. Why don't they just call the cops? Have you or anyone you know tried to report a rape to a police officer, or for that matter, a stolen bike? Sad but true, rape is not very high on the priorities list for law enforcement, unless usually it's too late. And finally, everyone knows the easiest way to deflect claims of assault is to say the accuser is lying. Never mind the fact that rape in general goes very underreported, and of the ones that are reported, only about 2 to 10% of them are considered false allegations. But don't worry, non-believers, because 100% of that 2% lives right here in the Speaking Out hashtag. Some see this moment as a dark period in wrestling, to the point where many fans and even workers could possibly leave the business out of disgust. And I understand, this is not a great look for the business, not a good time to be a wrestling fan. But even though these stories are tragic and sickening, perhaps from them we could produce a brighter future for the industry. This is the time for wrestling to finally be as progressive and forward-thinking as many say it's been. When we say wrestling is for everyone, that means we get all the toxic shit that made up wrestling's past the hell out of the business. Keep professional wrestling for the professionals, not the predators. So how can that be accomplished? Well, there's a few things. First and foremost, you gotta get the abusers, the predators, the pedophiles, and the groomers out of the locker rooms and out of their places of power like booking or training. That is a given. And in their place, why not some female representation, or BIPOC, or from the queer community? Imagine how much more welcoming and inviting wrestling can be for old and new fans alike if more people are represented in creative and managerial spots in the company. Next, how's about some HR? What's stopping every promotion on earth from hiring somebody, some neutral third party with an expertise in managing interpersonal conflict? Somebody who's there and someone who wrestlers or fans or trainees or crew members can talk to if there's an issue. How about sexual harassment training? How about separate locker rooms for men and for women? We in wrestling all need to do better. Not just telling the abusers to stop abusing. That's just part of the issue, but we all need to be more accountable. I'm speaking for myself as well. We need to be more observant, more vigilant, and seeing what happens. If something comes up that doesn't feel right, we need to speak up on it. We need to graduate from the mindset that keeping your bookings and not rocking the boat is more important than peace of mind, keeping everyone safe and making sure that people are held accountable for their actions. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, abuse can still happen. But when it does happen, we need to listen to the victims and protect them. Making people feel bad for speaking out or casting them out doesn't help anybody except the abusers. Being proactive is nice, but when that doesn't work, we need to be better at reacting. Let's be real, we have all said and done things in our lives that we regret saying and doing. And I wholeheartedly believe in second chances. But the most important thing here is growth. If people can serve their penance and show they have grown as human beings and show genuine remorse for what they did, literally that's all we're asking for, is accountability and growth. Being a better person. That is it. We wouldn't be canceling so many people if the ratings weren't so shitty. We gotta break the cycle of boys will be boys, or girls are asking for it, or don't speak out or you'll lose bookings, or it's the way it's always been. Those excuses didn't fly then, and they don't fly now. And I'm wholeheartedly aware this is a societal issue that needs drastic work all over the place. But if we can try to remove the stigma from this overly macho and protective boys club world of wrestling, it's a start, because wrestling should be for everyone. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.